In the beautiful autumn season with colorful foliage in the Boston suburbs, Olivia Parker gazed out the window of the library. The elementary school library where she worked was enveloped in tranquility after the children had gone home. Olivia was a woman who concealed a strong will beneath her gentle expression. Her fingers straightened the spines of books while she thought about what to make for dinner tonight. "Mom!" A bright voice echoed through the library, and Olivia turned around. Her 10-year-old son Matthew came running in, waving a picture excitedly. "Look! I drew this in art class. Fishing with Grandpa." Olivia smiled and took her son's artwork. It depicted an older man with white hair and a young boy sitting by a lake. Matthew's drawing was remarkably detailed for his age, capturing his grandfather Joseph's characteristic blue eyes and strong jawline. "It's a lovely picture. Your father would be delighted if you gave it to him." Matthew's face lit up. "I'll take it to him this weekend. Grandpa said he's going to show me a new fishing spot." Olivia gently stroked her son's hair. There was a special bond between her father Joseph and her son. When Matthew was born, her parents had initially criticized Olivia for becoming an unwed mother at a young age, but from the moment they saw Matthew, especially her father, they showered their grandson with deep affection. "Let's go home. I'll make your favorite lasagna today." As the two left the library, her colleague Linda saw them off. "Olivia, is everything ready for next week's reading event?" "Yes, almost finished. Matthew has been helping me too." Linda turned to Matthew and said, "Your mother is a wonderful librarian. She helps children learn to love books." Matthew smiled proudly. "I know. Mom is the best." Olivia put her arm around her son's shoulders and headed toward the parking lot. Her old Honda Civic stood in stark contrast to her parents' luxury cars and her sister Vanessa's sports car. Despite growing up in a wealthy family, she had chosen a simple life. When they got home and Olivia was preparing dinner, the phone rang. The screen displayed the name Vanessa. Olivia hesitated briefly before answering. "Hello, Vanessa." "Olivia, you're coming to Mom and Dad's anniversary party this weekend, right?" Vanessa's voice was always full of confidence. "I've arranged everything. 6 o'clock. Don't be late." "Of course I'll come. Should I bring anything?" "You don't need to bring anything. Just..." Vanessa paused for a moment. "Make sure Matthew wears proper clothes. Not those casual outfits like last Christmas." Olivia took a deep breath. "Matthew is always proper." "Well, Mom and Dad's friends will be there. I just don't want you two to be embarrassed." After hanging up, Olivia leaned against the kitchen counter and closed her eyes. Vanessa had succeeded in New York's high-end fashion industry, always maintaining a perfect appearance, and was her parents' pride. In contrast, Olivia's status as a young unwed mother was considered the family.
Do you know some people earn over $10,000 a month just by posting Reddit stories on YouTube? No face, no voice, just a laptop. I do it too, link below if you're curious.
Family's shame. "Mom, are you okay?" Matthew's voice brought Olivia back to reality. "Yes, I'm fine. We're going to Grandma and Grandpa's party. Won't that be fun?" Matthew nodded, but there was a knowing shadow in his expression. Was that Aunt Vanessa on the phone? Olivia smiled, surprised by her son's keen observation. "Yes. She just wanted to make sure we're coming to the party." That night, after Matthew went to bed, Olivia opened a family album. There were pictures of young Vanessa and herself. Vanessa didn't have the family's characteristic blue eyes and jawline. Olivia had noticed this but never thought it particularly significant. She must take after her mother's relatives. As she looked at the photos, she thought about her complicated relationship with her parents. When she became pregnant, her parents were deeply disappointed, but when Matthew was born, especially her father showed special affection for his grandson. "Matthew is a special child," her father had often said. He has our blood flowing in him. Olivia remembered those words and felt slightly puzzled. But without thinking too deeply about it, she closed the album. She had work tomorrow and the party this weekend. She needed to prepare herself to face Vanessa. That night, as Olivia was cleaning up after dinner, the phone rang. She dried her hands and picked up the receiver. Olivia Parker speaking. A police officer's voice came through. Miss Parker, I have sad news about your parents. Olivia's fingers tightened around the phone. What happened? There was a car accident on the mountain road tonight. Both of them. The officer paused momentarily as if choosing his words. Both passed away at the scene. My deepest condolences. The room seemed to spin. Olivia collapsed into a kitchen chair. No, it can't be. Miss Parker, are you all right? She answered with a trembling voice. Yes, I'm fine. I'll come right away. After hanging up, Olivia covered her face with her hands. After sitting like that for a long time, she took a deep breath and stood up. Peeking into Matthew's room, she saw her son lying quietly reading a book. What could she tell him? How could she explain? She knocked on the door and waited for Matthew to say, "Come in," before entering. Matthew, I need to talk to you about something. Olivia sat on the edge of her son's bed. Matthew looked up from his book. What is it, Mom? Olivia took Matthew's hand. I have sad news. Grandpa and Grandma were in a car accident. Matthew's eyes widened. Are they okay? Olivia embraced her son. No, Matthew. They've passed away. Matthew didn't move. His small body stiffened, then began to tremble. That can't be. I was supposed to go fishing with Grandpa tomorrow. Olivia held her son as they both cried for a long time. Eventually, Matthew said in a small voice, Mom, Grandpa was trying to tell me something. Last week when I saw him. Olivia gently kissed her son's forehead. What was he trying to tell you? Matthew closed his eyes. I don't know. But it seemed very important. Like he was entrusting me with something. That night, after Matthew fell asleep, Olivia called Vanessa. Her sister seemed momentarily speechless but quickly recovered and began giving instructions. I'll book a flight right away. I'll be there by tomorrow morning. Don't worry about the funeral arrangements. I'll take care of everything. The next morning, Vanessa arrived dressed in a designer black suit and sunglasses. She looked around Olivia's modest apartment with a slight frown. I'll handle all the funeral preparations, she said, taking out her smartphone. I've been in touch with the finest funeral home. We need to give Mom and Dad a proper send-off. Olivia just nodded quietly. In her grief, she focused on staying close to Matthew and supporting him. Matthew was quietly struggling to accept his grandparents' death. The funeral was held 3 days later. The church was filled with the Parkers' friends and acquaintances. Olivia and Matthew wore simple black clothes and sat in the front row. Vanessa, in a sophisticated black dress, read a moving eulogy before the attendees. She showed tears but delivered her words perfectly. Mom and Dad gave me everything. Without their love and guidance, I wouldn't be who I am today. Watching Vanessa, Olivia couldn't tell if her sister was genuinely grieving. Her sadness seemed real, but there also seemed to be an element of performance. After the funeral, close friends and relatives gathered at the parents' home. Vanessa performed perfectly as a hostess, while Olivia and Matthew stayed quietly in the corner. In the evening, as people began to leave, Olivia entered her father's study seeking a quiet moment. There she found Vanessa opening their mother's jewelry box, stuffing expensive necklaces and bracelets into her bag. Vanessa, what are you doing? Vanessa turned around, startled, but quickly regained her composure. Just organizing Mom's jewelry. So nobody steals it. But you're putting it in your own bag. Vanessa gave a cold smile. Be realistic, Olivia. You disappointed our parents by getting pregnant so young. Of course, I'll inherit the estate. Olivia was shocked. Vanessa, our parents were just buried. We shouldn't be talking about this now. When should we talk about it? After the will reading? Vanessa scoffed. The lawyer contacted me. It's the day after tomorrow. Just a formality. Olivia was speechless. She didn't argue but only asked that something be left for her child. Vanessa sneered, maybe I'll show you some mercy, and left the room. That night, Olivia and Matthew quietly returned to their apartment from her parents' house. Matthew sat still in the back seat. Mom, why is Aunt Vanessa so mean to us? He asked in a small voice. Olivia looked at her son through the rearview mirror. Aunt Vanessa is very sad right now. Sometimes people act strangely because of grief. Matthew continued staring out the window. But I noticed long ago. She doesn't like us. Especially me. Olivia couldn't say anything. Matthew's observation was accurate. The next day, attorney Lawrence Smith called with details about the will reading. According to the Parkers' wishes, it will be a small gathering with just family and close friends. On the day of the will reading, Olivia and Matthew wore simple black clothes and entered her father's study. Vanessa, dressed in designer mourning clothes, was already seated. She played the role of a grieving daughter with tear-reddened eyes before relatives and friends. Attorney Lawrence Smith nodded solemnly and took out the will. I will now read the final will and testament of the late Joseph and Eleanor Parker. He adjusted his glasses and began reading. After the introduction and formal language, the distribution of the main assets was described. As expected, most of the property, the company, house, investment accounts, would go to Vanessa. Olivia would receive a small inheritance and some keepsakes. Vanessa nodded with satisfaction and gave Olivia a triumphant look. You don't need to worry about them, Vanessa said loudly enough for others to hear. I'll take care of my sister and nephew. Olivia sat quietly, holding Matthew's hand tightly. She was disappointed but not surprised. Her parents' preference for her sister over her had been the family dynamic for years. As Attorney Smith was about to put away the documents, suddenly Matthew stood up. Everyone in the room looked at the small boy. Mr. Smith, I have something from Grandpa, he said, pulling an envelope from his small backpack. Grandpa told me, after the will is read, give this to them. Vanessa frowned. What is that? This can't be allowed. Her voice revealed anxiety. Attorney Smith explained, I received special instructions from Mr. Joseph, and took the envelope. Indeed, Mr. Joseph informed me that I might receive important documents from young Matthew. Olivia stared at her son, confused. Had Matthew been entrusted with something by his grandfather? She had no knowledge of this. The lawyer opened the envelope and prepared to read the letter inside. Vanessa was agitated and glared at Matthew. Olivia, confused, held her son's hand firmly. This is an additional document written by Mr. Joseph Parker himself, and it is legally valid, the lawyer explained. The study fell silent, as if time had stopped. Lawrence Smith cleared his throat lightly and began reading Joseph Parker's letter. By the time this letter is read, I will no longer be in this world. As a final message to my beloved family, I must reveal a truth I have kept hidden for years. The atmosphere in the room became tense. Olivia could see the blood draining from Vanessa's face. She placed her hand on Matthew's shoulder and drew him closer. Matthew's expression was serious, as if he alone knew what was about to happen. The lawyer continued, 30 years ago, Eleanor and I were blessed with our beloved daughter Olivia. She is the only child who carries our blood. Vanessa was adopted 3 years later, after we had lost a child and were grieving. We loved her as our own daughter but decided not to reveal the truth to her. That may have been a mistake. Vanessa's face had completely paled, and her hands began to tremble. Lies, she suddenly shouted. These are lies. Mom and Dad loved me. I am their real daughter. Olivia was shocked and at a loss for words. She stared at her sister, and many things she had never noticed before suddenly began to make sense. The fact that Vanessa didn't resemble anyone else in the family, the complex expressions her parents, especially her father, sometimes had when looking at Vanessa, and her sister's long-standing hostility toward her and Matthew. She heard her mother's close friend Caroline, seated in the corner of the room, take a small breath. Eleanor told me, but I promised never to say anything. The lawyer calmly continued reading. Recently, I sensed that Vanessa was beginning to discover the truth. Perhaps she found old documents. Her behavior changed, showing particular hostility toward Olivia and Matthew. She may have carried anger and fear knowing she wasn't a real member of the Parker family. Vanessa stood up and shouted, "Stop. I don't want to hear any more." Her perfect appearance was crumbling, her makeup smeared with tears. Lawrence Smith ignored her protest and continued reading firmly. My love for Vanessa remains unchanged even after she learned the truth. However, her actions, trying to distance Olivia from us, ignoring Matthew, and the recently discovered embezzlement of funds from the company, are unacceptable. Sounds of surprise arose from the room. Olivia had worked at her father's company but knew nothing about any embezzlement. Vanessa was now sobbing, slumped in her chair. Her appearance was completely different from her usual confident demeanor. Olivia stared at Vanessa. She now finally understood the reason for her sister's long-standing hostility. She was hit by complex emotions, shock, sadness, and a strange sense of relief. It explained the feeling of alienation she had experienced in her life and her complicated relationship with her parents. Matthew sat quietly, but his expression showed understanding beyond his years. He seemed proud to have been entrusted with something by his grandfather. Lawrence Smith began reading the final part of the letter. That is why I entrusted this letter to Matthew. He is intuitive and has the ability to sense family truths. He is our only grandchild who carries our blood and is worthy to inherit the family legacy. Vanessa will receive some of the assets outlined in the original will. However, the family company and major assets should go to Olivia and Matthew. This is not merely because of blood relations, but because of the integrity and love they have shown. Vanessa let out a small sob. Olivia stood up and instinctively tried to approach her sister, but Vanessa waved her away in rejection. The lawyer continued, to Vanessa, I love you. Please forgive me for hiding the truth. I hope you find your own path. To Olivia, I apologize for not properly appreciating you all these years. You are a wonderful daughter and mother. To Matthew, I'm sorry for entrusting you with such a serious responsibility. But I believe you can protect the truth and unite the family. With love, Joseph Parker. The room fell silent. Vanessa was sobbing, and Olivia was too shocked to move. Matthew had a relieved expression on his face, having fulfilled the mission entrusted to him by his grandfather. After a while, Lawrence Smith cleared his throat and declared, this document is legally valid and takes precedence over the initial will. He took out another document from his briefcase and added, the details are outlined here. Vanessa suddenly stood up and shouted, you won't get anything. Her eyes mixed with anger and fear. I'm taking this to court. Dad was losing his judgment in his final years. Lawrence Smith quietly shook his head. Joseph anticipated you would react this way. For this reason, 2 weeks before writing this letter, he created a certificate confirming his mental state was completely sound, witnessed by 2 doctors and myself. Also, this document merely records the truth he had known all along. Vanessa stared at Olivia. You arranged this. You knew all along. Olivia quietly shook her head. I knew nothing, Vanessa. This is a shock to me too. Liar. Vanessa shouted. You always monopolized our parents' love. And now you get everything. Matthew suddenly stood up and approached Vanessa. Everyone in the room held their breath. The 10-year-old boy's expression was remarkably calm. Aunt, I knew, he said quietly. Grandpa told me. But that's not what matters. Grandpa said, blood alone doesn't make family. Love and choice make family. Vanessa stared at her nephew, seeing the kindness and sympathy in his eyes. Matthew continued, Grandpa loved you too. That's why he left you part of the estate. The room fell silent again. Vanessa's anger and shock seemed to soften slightly. She stared at Matthew, seemingly moved by the kindness he showed. Olivia took a deep breath and said, Vanessa, let's talk. This is a big shock for us too, but we can get through it together. Vanessa covered her face with both hands. Her shoulders were trembling. After a long silence, she grabbed her handbag and said, I've had enough, and left the room. After the door closed, Lawrence Smith turned to Olivia. Joseph left other documents as well. I'll explain the details after Vanessa has calmed down a bit. Olivia nodded and hugged Matthew. The air in the room was heavy, with the after-effects of shock and revealed truths lingering. A week passed. Olivia was sorting through belongings in her parents' house. In the spacious mansion, she still wasn't accustomed to the fact that she was the new owner. Vanessa had disappeared after the will reading and couldn't be contacted. Her apartment was empty, and her work colleagues didn't know her whereabouts. Matthew was quietly taking books from the bookshelf in his grandfather's study and putting them back. He seemed fascinated by his grandfather's collection. Mom, look at this, Matthew suddenly called out. Olivia stopped what she was doing and entered the study. Matthew had opened an old album. There was a photo of young Vanessa with something written on the back. Vanessa Collins, age 3, our angel welcomed in 1995. Olivia was speechless. She really was adopted. She whispered quietly. In her mind, she was surprised that she hadn't noticed this fact for so many years. Her parents must have been skilled at keeping secrets. The next day, Lawrence Smith visited Olivia and gave her another document Joseph had left detailing Vanessa's adoption. According to it, Vanessa was the child of a young unwed mother who gave her up for adoption due to financial difficulties. Your father was always concerned about when to tell Vanessa the truth, the lawyer explained. However, it seems she discovered the truth on her own before the appropriate time came. When did she find out? Olivia asked. According to Joseph, it was about 3 years ago. He said that's when Vanessa's behavior suddenly began to change. Olivia began examining the company's financial records in her father's study. There was indeed evidence of Vanessa's fraudulent embezzlement, revealing that she had been siphoning off money from the company little by little for years. Why would she do such a thing? Olivia was saddened. But now, she could somewhat understand the reason. Vanessa, knowing she was an outsider to the family, might have been seeking some kind of insurance. A few days later, as Olivia was trying to adjust to her new role, there was an unexpected visitor. The doorbell rang, and when she opened it, Vanessa was standing there. She looked exhausted, without makeup, her usual perfect appearance gone. We need to talk, she said quietly. Olivia invited her sister in. They sat in the living room, and Matthew was told to go to his room. How long have you known? Olivia gently asked. 3 years, Vanessa answered directly. I found adoption papers in our parents' bedroom. It explained everything, why I don't look like anyone in the family, why our parents sometimes looked at me with sad expressions. Vanessa gave a tired smile. At first, I couldn't believe it. But the evidence was clear. I wasn't a member of the Parker family. Why didn't you tell us? Vanessa gave a bitter laugh. What was I supposed to say? Hey, did you know I'm not really family? And I was afraid that if I told our parents I knew, they would distance themselves from me. Olivia reached out to take Vanessa's hand, but Vanessa pulled back. She was still building walls around her heart. But why take money from the company? Olivia asked quietly. Insurance, Vanessa said coldly. I thought someday our parents would abandon me. After all, I wasn't the real daughter. Olivia took a deep breath and said, Vanessa, blood relations don't define family. Our parents loved you. I love you. Vanessa began to cry. Her carefully constructed cold exterior was beginning to crumble. But in the end, Father left everything to you and Matthew. Blood relations did matter. No, Olivia shook her head. What Dad did was a reaction to your actions, the embezzlement and hostility toward us, not because of blood relations. Vanessa's shoulders slumped. The pressure of years of fear, anger, and keeping secrets seemed to finally release from her. What should I do? Her voice was small and fragile. First, be honest. And if you want, we can start a new relationship. We may not be sisters by blood, but we can be family by choice. After a long silence, Vanessa gave a small nod. Can I see Matthew? I've been a terrible aunt, but... Olivia called for Matthew, and he cautiously approached Vanessa. Grandpa told me, truth sometimes hurts, but ultimately it heals. Vanessa was surprised by Matthew's words. You've always been a special child. I can see why Grandpa thought so highly of you. Matthew gave a small smile. You're special too, Aunt. Grandpa said so. That's why he entrusted me with the letter, to unite the family. Tears welled up in Vanessa's eyes. She laughed weakly. I've been terrible to you both. Everyone makes mistakes, Olivia said. What matters is what we do from now on. That night, the three of them shared their first truly family dinner together. 1 year later, in autumn, the foliage in the Boston suburbs was beautifully colored. The Parker Furniture Store showroom displayed warm furniture reflecting the colors of the trees. Olivia had inherited her father's entrepreneurial spirit, incorporating modern designs while preserving tradition. Under her management, the company began to develop a new customer base, and sales were steadily increasing. Matthew excelled in school and helped at the store on weekends. He had inherited his grandfather's talent and had begun making small wooden jewelry boxes of his own design. Customers were impressed by this 11-year-old boy's talent. Matthew, your boxes were a big hit with last week's customers, Olivia told her son. They especially loved how you matched the wood grain. Matthew smiled shyly. Grandpa taught me. Meanwhile, Vanessa had quit her job in New York and opened a small boutique in a nearby town. Leveraging her refined taste and connections, she had launched her own fashion brand. She was returning part of her profits to the company to gradually repay the embezzled amount. The relationship between Olivia and Vanessa remained complex but was gradually improving. They exchanged phone calls and cards on birthdays and holidays, and sometimes shared dinners. On the anniversary of their parents' death, the three visited the grave. If Mom and Dad were watching, they would be proud, Olivia said quietly. Vanessa gave a small nod. Especially of you. I still feel guilty. Olivia placed her hand on her sister's shoulder. You're trying hard too. That's what matters. Returning home from the cemetery, Matthew came running from the study. Mom, look. I found another letter. It was a small envelope with Matthew's name written on it. The three opened the envelope with tension. Inside was a short letter and an old key. Dear Matthew, this is the key to my last treasure. A small metal box is buried under the large oak tree in the backyard. The contents are for you, Olivia, and Vanessa. The real treasure is not in objects, but in connections. Blood relation is one form of family, but bonds of choice are often stronger. I hope the three of you can become one family again. With love, Grandpa. In the backyard, the three dug up the box. Inside were old photographs, letters, and 3 beautiful watches. Some photos showed young Vanessa with her birth parents. Dad was researching her origins. Olivia was surprised. The letters contained information about Vanessa's birth parents, and the fact that they loved her but couldn't afford to raise her. Grandpa knew all along, Matthew said. He always cared about you, Aunt. Tears welled up in Vanessa's eyes. Thank you, Dad. She whispered quietly. Finally, there was an envelope marked, to be shared among the 3 of you, containing a considerable bank certificate. Grandpa held hope until the end, Matthew said. That we could become a real family. Vanessa wiped away tears and said, for years, I was attached for the wrong reasons. Blood relations don't make a family. Love and choice make a family. Olivia placed her hand on Vanessa's shoulder. There's no such thing as a perfect family. But we can choose to be together. The 3 stood before their parents' graves and made a new pledge. To begin walking as a new family, bound not only by blood relations but by choice, understanding, and forgiveness. By fulfilling the mission his grandfather had entrusted to him, Matthew had led them to a deeper truth beyond mere inheritance division. What are the true bonds of family, not formed by blood, but by the choices of the heart?